It's really hard to buy DRAM nowadays. If you're building a computer or whatever, it's just so expensive that it's not even worth it to upgrade your PC right now.
Had a huge price jump recently, but why?
We're gonna learn about it today. There's a video, DRAM shortage crisis, explained by Caleb Wright's code.
Samsung is rumored to raise their all-memory price. And if you look at the broad market outside of Samsung, it's not just the consumer server-grade DRAM. Contagion spreads to NAND as well with pricing. For example, if you look at this Corsair Vengeance RAM, it easily tripled in price in the past. And solid-state drives like this Samsung Evo also had a huge price jump recently. But why? Why is this happening all over? The first culprit that most people, if you follow the huge spike in NVIDIA's revenue, mostly driven by data center, it may lead you to say this is why DRAM price is crazy. But at a closer look, DRAM prices have mostly at around while demand for AI chip have been going on for years, dating all the way back before. So how does all of this make? Today, we're going to look at the DRAM shortage crisis happening globally and also understand what DRAM really is in the first place and look at the broad markets causing. Welcome to Caleb Bright's Code every second. Quick shout out to Zokum them later. Let's first look at the impact that AI is having. We know that modern computers have a hierarchy of memory starting from the CPU that has L1, L2, and L3. For example, my computer at home uses the AMD Ryzen 5 that has 384 kilobytes L1, 3 megabytes of 2 cache, and 32 megabytes of L3 cache. And the real estate of these memories would look something like this. We all know that you can't just run an AI model directly to you. Modern large language models like DeepSeek R1 that are 671 billion in size need a lot more memory than what my CPU can from L1. The DeepSeek R1 model, for example, even at a low 1.58 utilization, needs at least 130. And since my CPU can't offer that kind of memory, we have to work our way down the hierarchy of memory until we. So the next stack, typical consumer grade hardware, somewhere around 8 to 32, which is still nowhere close to being able to run. So we have to go even further down our memory hierarchy. Solid state drives offer a huge amount of space, easily in the terabyte. So we could load our 130 gig model in here, but throughput, as you can see, depending on what stack the model, you're limited by the upward bound of memory bandwidth between each. Where the further down the stack you go from CPU, the slower the. But this kind of setup is rather since you'll be lucky. That's why most AI models run directly on graphics instead of CPU RAM. Graphics card that you see in the server, like the NVIDIA H100, offers speed of 809 per second for a single memory. This kind of throughput allows an insane speed comparison computer stack. For example, one of my graphics card at home, I use the NVIDIA 4 Super, which uses GDDR6X that offers 23 gigabits per second, 250, and this gives me access to throughput around 736 per second. But unlike my consumer grade graphics, which is the NVIDIA 4080 Super, that is GDDR6X based memory, where the memory chip is placed around the GPU on CB, the NVIDIA H100 uses what's called HBM, or high bandwidth memory, that stacks them vertically, which means our earlier figures of H100 being 819 per second is actually closer per second, factoring in overhead, which is still huge. So immediately, we went from 50 to CPU configuration to now upwards of 3 terabytes of throughput. And since neural network-based applications rely heavily on insane matrix applications, and see why memory configurations like this is the buzz around it. And this kind of difference, the performance, dictate the user's experience can go from few tokens per second to use to upwards of maybe 100 per second. So now that we outlined the broad ecosystem, let's question why are pricing consumer grade RAM and NAND AI data centers are spending hundreds of billions of HBM based. Let's look at the supply chain of Zokum. Here's the problem. You have file application, private cloud instance, and because computer, Wi-Fi, AMD, link in the huge, so much that NVIDIA and AMD have seen huge rise in revenue in the past few years. And we also have Google's TPU that's also in the mix, as well as Amazon's own proprietary, like their application-specific integrated circuit. And let's not forget Grok. As you can see, this level of pressure AI puts on supply chain points directly to graphics. We just saw how important the interconnect plays a role in user experience. So while the bottleneck can largely be overcome by throwing more graphics at it, being able to serve them faster is more. And Frontier Labs aren't the only players around putting huge. We also have neoclouds that are serving auxiliary demand tier labs, as well as researchers, hobbyists, and sovereign clouds like CoreWeave, Nebius, as well as emerging neocloud are listed here. All of this puts a strain on manufacturing the memory. Memory manufacturers like Samsung, SK Hynix, Western Digital, and more all serve these kinds of, which means to serve this kind of demand from AI requires them to either expand their operation to serve AI based instead, or both. And we're actually seeing both of them happening from memory manufacturers like Samsung. The problem with expansion, fabs anywhere between 2 to 5 years, which creates a huge manufacturing, let alone the amount of investment. And despite this constraint, OpenAI secured up 900 Hynix every month to meet their target facility. And some project that this could be around 40% of global. In other words, OpenAI is buying up nearly half of the world's DRAM, which creates the...
That's crazy. That's really crazy. 40%, and they don't have, I don't think they have make any profit.
Shortage. So blending all the demand spikes from frontier labs, hyperscalers like Microsoft and Amazon, as well as inference like Grok and Cerebras, and neoclouds and side deals that are being made from AI, the level of shortage that's created from this causing prices, consumer grade memory also spike across desktops, smartphones, storage, RAM, well, anything that really uses of some. Impacts like this is why we're seeing Samsung recently increasing memory pricing by 80% of all memory. Another angle that's worth mentioning, memory in general, because they don't really have a good track record when it comes to price. Back in 2016, the Department of Justice Samsung exec pled guilty, where each paid a $250,000 price fee, and many other allegations about the history, given how so few companies and the entire memory industry is known to be more cyclical. Even going back to 2017, we had a boom cycle largely driven by the lack of, and of course, coming out of 2020, we had the supply chain shortage as well, ended up over insane inventory that led to prices actually down by a large degree. And now the inventory is decelerating again, which explained a more recent DRAM price pairing with it started to, as you can see, even though we had many super cycles of the past, what we're experiencing here is somewhat different than the past, given that SK Hynix is now making 10% less NAND memory, likely to ramp up HBM instead. Micron is also conservative state production. Kioxia reducing their production last year by 7 million. All seem to point extended until we start pricing. China, on the other hand, is still 3 to 5 years behind technology comparison to one of their biggest fabs. CXM is targeting of RAM $8, which is still decent on face value. Technology is still at the R4 production. They are targeting to have their soon, which could fuel their. What do you think about the DRAM shortage? We will soon see prices of DRAM returning back to normalcy, or the prices continue to.
The prices will fall. I think that is just the case. We're in a situation like he explained really well, where the companies that produce DRAM and these DRAM chips, they have lowered production because they used to have too high of a production, and now the demand has increased as well. So we're in kind of a position where the supply just has to catch up to the demand. And you know, if you know anything about finance and markets and anything like that, that really should happen, and I think it's gonna happen. Why this is so bad right now, and why this will be quite bad, with the prices being so high, it means a couple of. First off, most consumers are priced out of upgrading their computers and maybe priced out of running, for example, their own AI models at home. And at the same time, these big companies have to pay a lot more for their chips, for their graphics. And what this is gonna mean for the big companies is that they're not gonna keep their worth. If you think about it, like how fast like new electronics, new technology, new chips, how fast they devalue, it's quite fast, because the fastest chips or the fastest graphics cards right now are not gonna be the fastest in a few years. They're probably gonna be working for a long time, and you can definitely work them a long time if you have an application where they work and they serve a purpose. But to be honest, they lose value quite fast. And if you're spending like millions and millions and millions and billions and trillions just on the chips and graphics cards, and they lose half of their value in a year, the company has to make crazy revenue to catch up and, you know, supplement that. So I think it'll take a few years for DRAM prices to and for consumer memory for the prices to stabilize, and and get lower. We saw a similar thing back in, I don't know if it was like 2020 or something like that, when there was the crypto mining boom. Everyone went out and bought GPUs. GPU prices were crazy back then, and they came down a bit from that. Now they have gone a little bit up back again, but they did go down eventually. And me, for example, I was in the crypto mining boom. I was mining crypto back then, but it didn't really work out. Just because I got stuck with the GPUs, and when the price dropped, I had to sell them for a loss. And that is something that is really real, and is probably gonna happen nowadays as well. If you buy DRAM or DDR5 now, it's not gonna keep its value forever. So I would be cautious about doing a bigger purchase right now. Yeah, that's it about for the video. I think this video kind of got me interested in running my own AI model locally. I've thought about it a bit. The PC parts are quite expensive, but I'm gonna look into it because I've had so many issues with these online LLMs while doing vibe coding that it's just kind of annoying, and I definitely like to do everything locally, or as much as I can at least. So I'm gonna look into that in the next video.